How to play chess. This is the ultimate beginner guide. I will be covering everything you need to know to start your first chess game, as well as a bunch of fun mini games if you're a parent or a coach and you want to teach kids. That way you can jump in straight away and get going. There's a lot of rules in chess. What I'm going to cover today is how every single chess piece moves, the board itself, the chess language that we speak, a little bit of history about the game because it's an ancient game, the value of all the pieces, a couple of weird rules that have been invented over the course of history, such as en passant and castling, some general terms in chess, the goal of the game, checkmate, as well as what check is, and how to get out of check so you don't get checkmated, the strategy to start the game so you know what to do in the first few moves without just randomly moving your pieces. Before we start, I just wanted to mention why you should play chess to begin with. I'm going to use myself as an example here. I started playing chess properly at the age of 28. I didn't know how the pieces moved before that. I'm now 32. It's been a 4-year journey as an adult, working my way through the chess world. It has absolutely changed my life in every way. It got me addicted to learning, it's made me much more educated, it's improved my cognitive functions, my memory is way better than it used to be. I've gained an immense amount of resilience. I could have never done YouTube if I didn't start on this chess journey. I quit my job as a carpenter in maintenance and took a massive pay cut in order to teach chess to local and rural schools, as well as run chess tournaments and do this YouTube thing. I've never been more passionate about something in my life. It's increased my mental well-being. The game is bigger than ever, mainly because of the Queen's Gambit that came out. It's really popularized chess at the moment. We're going through a boom. There's everything from streamers to professional basketballs that are just making the game more and more popular every day. It helps your problem-solving skills. It helps your creativity, especially if you get into blindfold chess. I could go on for much longer, but there's so many reasons why chess can bring a lot of joy and passion into your life. You can't skip any of this video, you need to watch the whole thing from start to end, but I promise you, if you watch to the end of this video, you will 100% know how to play chess. Usually I like to use these pieces because this theme was crafted in the 12th century by Vikings. I just think that's awesome. However, a lot of the chess sets today don't look like this. So this might confuse you. I don't think this will be your first set you'll ever get. So let's switch these out for a more modern set. I'm bringing my board here. First thing, let's start with the chessboard. Take these pieces off and we'll go over the notation. Let's see if this is going to work. Okay, the chessboard. First things first, we have 64 squares in total. The main thing I want to show you now though is the chess language and how we communicate with each other. We have A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, and 1 to 8. So this is from White's perspective starting on 1 and 2. Black sets up on 7 and 8. For now, all you need to know is if you want to talk about this square in particular, you would go C, follow it up, 5, C5. This square, for example, would be G3. That's about it for the board. Let's get back to our next section. Now you know how to talk in our secret chess language. Time to learn how some of the pieces move. We're going to start with the king because it's the simplest piece, and I'm going to do a mini game. The black king will start here on this square, E8. The white king will start on E1. Noticing the king starts on the opposite collar of what it is because the queen itself will actually go on its own collar. This mini game is called King Chase. I got it from this book, Rebel Queen. This is Susan Polgar's book. For those of you that don't know Susan Polgar, she is the first female to achieve the rank of Grand Master in chess. If you've seen the Queen's Gambit, this is kind of like the real life Queen's Gambit, and there'll probably be a movie made out of this shortly. I'm really excited for this. This came out this year. King Chase. First off, how does the king actually move? Let me get rid of this king and just place this king in the center. It's kind of like the old grandpa of chess. He can only go one square at a time. He can go up, left, right, down, or diagonal in any direction. But only one square. So he can literally go anywhere here. The main rule about the king is he's never allowed to put himself in danger. That's why this game is great to play with 5-year-old kids when you first teach them chess, because they'll always take the king off the board and go, I won, I took the king off the board. But that's not how you actually win in chess. You win by checkmate, which is kind of like taking the king prisoner. We'll get to that a bit later on. But for now, as an example, if white moves the king up, this would be an illegal move because both kings are now in danger. Kings can literally never touch. They need the other pieces to do the dirty work for them. And the idea is you want to race each other. So whoever can get the king to the other side of the board first wins. So white wants to get anywhere here on what we call a rank. This is called a rank. And black wants to get to the first rank to win. So white might move forward trying to make some progress. moving one at a time. They might go diagonal, this one might go diagonal, something like this. And you'll see very quickly, white goes first. So it's quite easy for them to win. However, black needs to figure out how to stop white, using the fact that the kings can never touch, trying to stop white from progressing. Eventually, when you get good at this game, if your opponent's not very good, you can figure out a way to draw. Also, from the white side, you can force a win using what we call opposition. I've got a whole separate video on that, so I won't go into that here. But essentially, you're learning complicated chess rules just by playing this fun little mini game. So, goal of the game, you get your king to the other side first. Also, remembering that you can never put your king in danger. Kings can never touch, that is illegal. So that's the kings, and this is king chase. Let's move on to another fun mini game we have. This is called pawn football or pawn soccer. Everyone has different names for this. Essentially, you use just the pawns. These are the pawns. You set up, so white's pawns are on the 2nd rank. Black's pawns are on the 7th rank, like so. If you ever forget which side white and black is on, white starts the game. So I like to remember that white is on 1 and 2 because they go first, and black is on 7 and 8. How do the pawns move? Most of our pieces, they move and attack the exact same way. Pawns are special in this regard. So they move one way and they capture or take another piece a different way. The way they move generally is they move one at a time, like so. Moving forward, marching towards the opponent. However, the way they capture is diagonally one. A little bit different. I like to picture it 2 ways. The first way is kind of like, it's like a T-Rex, right? They got these tiny little arms and they can only capture 1 square this way. Another way I've heard from another coach is they use tiny little swords. So they got these kind of swords. They don't even know how to hit straight because they got something in the way, but they can hit sideways like this. So that's how they capture. So black, for example, can capture the pawn like this. The object of this game is whoever gets one of their pawns to the end first wins. So white wants to get at least 1 pawn over here, black wants to get 1 pawn over here. However, in the 15th century, we decided chess is way too slow. Let's make it more fun. What if we give them a boost at the start? So they invented that you could move 2 off the starting square. Black can do the same. This is where a lot of people get confused. Like I said before, they capture differently. So white right now is not allowed to take this pawn here. That would be an illegal move. These two are kind of like stuck in the mud. They're kind of at the front line, banging their shields together, but they can't move. The only way for them to be able to move past is if you build up an attack. Like so. This pawn can now capture here, but it's not allowed to capture here. So this is illegal because there's no pawn to capture. You can only use your swords if there's something to take. So black can capture here, for example, taking the pawn off the board. The more pieces off the board, the easier it is for you to get to your objective at the end. White put this pawn here because they're going to recapture back. Take the pawn off the board. And let's say black plays this move. They use their boost. They go 2 off the starting square. Remembering you're not allowed to move 2 ever again once you've moved 2. So it's kind of like the pawns get tired. So this pawn from now on can only ever go 1. The awesome thing about this game is young kids really struggle with pawns in particular because the way that they move differently to the way they capture. It also teaches you an advanced chess concept. What I do now is I push past this pawn. Let's say black takes because they don't want me getting towards the goal, and I take back like this. The awesome thing about this game is it teaches you how to create what we call a passed pawn. This is a more advanced concept. The idea is that black literally cannot stop this pawn from running and scoring a goal here and winning the game. Because pawns are not allowed to take sideways, that is illegal, and they cannot go backwards or diagonally backwards. They can only ever march forwards. They're the foot soldiers of chess. So whatever black tries, we're going to slowly march towards the edge of the board and win the game. So in this example, white wins. It's a very quick mini game. It just gets you used to using the pawns. I highly recommend if you're trying to teach your son, daughter, or if you're a coach teaching a young kid, playing this a bunch of times because they can actually get quite strong at this very fast and they have more of a chance to win. If they play a normal chess game against you, if you know how to play chess, they can play thousands of games and they will never win. However, after a few rounds of this, they start figuring out how to win. They learn how to make a passed pawn. So in this example, pawn football, if you get your pawn to the end, you win the game. In normal chess, it's actually very difficult to get a pawn to the end here with your entire army set up at the back. So normally we have a special rule in chess where if you get your piece to the end, you're allowed to jump off the board and get any piece you want back. Usually a queen because it's the best piece in chess. So we place the queen here, take the pawn off the board. We don't do this in pawn football, but this is a special chess rule I wanted to mention while we're here. So play a few rounds of this with your friend who's learning as well, or teach your son or daughter, and you're gonna have a lot of fun before you get into a proper game of real chess. Because it's so complicated, you're gonna get confused. But hang around, we're gonna go through every step. The next piece we're gonna talk about is the knight. So let me put these away and we'll bring in the knight. The knight's a very special piece. It is the only piece in the game that is allowed to jump over other pieces. It also moves really funny. So it goes 1, 2, turn. It's kind of like a capital L. 1, 2, turn. In any direction. So it can go forwards, it can go backwards. The only piece that can't go backwards or sideways in chess is the pawn. So from here, for example, it can go 1, 2, turn, sideways. It can go 1, 2, turn, backwards. 1, 2, turn, forwards. 1, 2, turn. And it can keep hopping around the board. It can jump over pieces. A lot of people love the knight. It's their favorite chess piece because it's so unique. A fun mini game you can play, I call the floor is lava, where you can put a bunch of pawns. So you need to practice this a little bit yourself before you teach someone else. So you put a bunch of pawns like so. The end of the game is that you are not allowed to touch the lava, which is every piece which is not a pawn here. So these are kind of like stepping stone pylons. You want to get to the end without touching the ground. So for example, you go 1, 2, turn, 1, 2, turn, 1, 2, turn, 1, 2, turn. Just keep going like this until eventually you finish the game. This is sudden death. The next one you can have some lives, but in this scenario you have no lives. It's fun to give the student an option to go wrong. Here there's only one path that leads to victory. However, if I shuffle it around a little bit, like so, I'm going to give them a choice. This way they can go wrong. So they can jump to here, they can jump to here, and then now, they're going to decide, am I going this way or this way? If they go this way, they can finish the obstacle course without touching the lava. However, if they go this way, once they get here, they're going to run out of places to go. They're not allowed to go back and repeat, so they're going to fail the game. So they're going to have to figure out the correct choice and which way to go. They're going to have to go around this way. So that's a fun little mini game you can set up to practice how the knight moves. But just remembering 1, 2, turn, capital L, and it's the only piece that can jump over pieces. Next up, we have the bishop. The bishop's pretty simple. It just goes like an X. So it goes diagonally as far as it wants to on its own collar. So for example, here it's starting on a light square. It can only go on the light square, but it can move diagonally like an X. That's why typically you have two bishops, what we call the bishop pair, because one starts on a light square, one starts on a dark square. This way you can cover every square on the chessboard. When you have only one, you can only touch half of the squares. A fun mini game with this is you can set up pawns only on the light squares, like so. What I like to do with my students here is kind of like the floor is lava again, but they have lives. So every time they capture a piece, they get a life. Capture a piece, they get a life. Because we're moving diagonally. You'll notice already we have to touch the lava. So you can set this as hard or easy as you want, depending on the age of your student. So let's say they play here, so they move diagonally down, they've touched the lava, so I put another pawn back. You can make this go kind of infinite, but obviously you're going to eventually make it so they can win. So they capture a pawn here, for example, they move diagonally, they have to touch the lava again. In this kind of game, I make it that they can't actually capture you. It just makes it easier for them to figure out how the piece moves without worrying about being attacked by the pawns. And you can just keep going. They start collecting the lives. They really enjoy collecting all these lives, but you hold onto the lives, and eventually they start collecting all of them. They touch the lava again. You decide you want to finish the game for them. You set it up, and eventually they can win. So that's how the bishop moves, like an X, as far as it wants to, diagonally, and it can go backwards as well. The light square bishop can never touch the dark squares, and the dark square bishop can never touch the light squares. I like to say this is like your vampire bishop, the dark square bishop. If it ever happens to go on a light square, it's just going to evaporate and disappear. Whereas this one, he's a bit of a scaredy cat. He doesn't ever want to touch a dark square because he's scared of the dark. If you ever see your bishops on the same color, it means you've started somewhere, you've done a long range attack, and you've accidentally drifted off course. That's how the bishop moves. The next piece to introduce is the rook. This might sound like a bit of a funny word. The awesome thing about chess is it originated around the 6th century in India, and it was called chaturanga. Eventually making its way through trade routes, merchants loved playing the game, and the way we got the word rook is it's the Persian word for chariot. Originally this was a chariot before it became more modernized to look like a castle. So that's why it's called the rook. The rook's pretty simple. It moves like a plus. So up, down, left, and right, as far as it wants to. Like most pieces, it just moves until it runs into something. That's how it captures. It literally just barges into them and captures it. Same on the side. You can play the floor as lava game again. You can just put a bunch of pawns and go through capturing them one by one, like so. The rook, like all other pieces besides the knight, cannot jump. So you're never allowed to jump over a piece. That is illegal. You have to go around a piece. Lastly, we have the queen, the strongest piece on the chessboard. The queen is essentially a rook and a bishop combined. But you have to choose on your turn. So you got to put your rook hat on and move it like a rook, up, down, left, or right, like a plus, or put your bishop hat on. I'm going to be a bishop this turn, so you can move like a bishop. A lot of people get confused and think the queen can move literally anywhere. It can't move anywhere. It can't move like a knight, and it cannot be a rook and the bishop on the same turn. You need to decide what to do. You can't just teleport over here. It's not allowed. So you need to spend 2 turns to move like a rook, and then move like a rook, for example. If you want to get to this square, you can move diagonally like a bishop, and then diagonally like a bishop on the next turn. Be careful with your queen. If you lose it, it's very hard to win at chess. How to set up the chessboard. Our rooks go on the edge. So for the white pieces, it'll be A1 and H1. Next to the rooks go both of your knights, then both of your bishops, and your queen will go on its own collar. Queen always on its own collar. White queen, white square. Black queen, black square. That's how you remember. And the king will go on the opposite color in the middle. So if your board's set up correctly, your king will be on E1 and your queen will be on D1. Then we fill it in with all the pawns. The pawns go at the front, like so. And then black will just copy and repeat the same process. So pawns all the way at the front. Rooks on the side. Knights next to the rooks. Bishops next to the knights. Queen on its own collar. And the king on E8. Before we start playing our game, we need to know how much the pieces are worth. Not every piece is the same. You'll notice we have 8 pawns, so this is the least valued piece. We like to give this 1 point of material. So pawns are worth 1 point. The next strongest piece are the knights and the bishops. These are worth 3 points each. So 3 points for a knight, 3 points for a bishop. The rook is slightly better than a knight and a bishop, so it's worth 5 points. The queen is our strongest piece by far, so it is worth 9 points. So if you lose your queen, you've essentially lost all of your pawns plus another pawn, or 3 what we call minor pieces, knights and bishops. So do not lose your queen early. That's like losing all of these pieces. The king doesn't have a value. We like to say it's worth infinity because the aim of the game is to take the king prisoner by checkmate. You cannot take the king off the board, so you cannot lose the king. So we like to say it doesn't have a value, or it's worth infinite. We have a funny few extra rules that have been invented over time. So like I said before, we decided in the 15th century to let the pawns move forward too. But this led to some headaches. So shortly after the fact, I think it was about 7 years later from memory, we invented another rule called en passant, French for in passing. The way this rule works, let me just make a few random moves here. The rule being, if on one turn you jump past your opponent's pawn, they're allowed to take it what we call en passant, and they win the pawn. Usually I'd be hesitant to teach a beginner this rule because they get it wrong all the time. Remember, they have to pass you 2 on the one turn, and then you can do it. If they pass you, you play a move, they play a move, you're no longer allowed to do en passant. It's got to be on the same turn. Also, if the pawn starts here, and then you play a move, and then they move, they haven't jumped past you on one turn, so you're not allowed to do en passant. It's a little bit of a tricky rule, but it does help speed up the game, and you can play this in your pawn football games, or you can just ignore it at the start until you get more used to the game. Let's build up to the castling rule. So at the start of the game, let's give you a little bit of strategy so you're not just randomly moving pawns. The idea is that this is a battlefield. Picture a real battlefield. You wouldn't start out with, say, your knights coming in this way, because this entire army is going to see you and shoot you with bows and arrows or attack you with their pikes or whatever they have and just destroy you, right? So usually you charge at the middle first. So let me give you the first 3 rules to start your game of chess. First off, you want to control the center, usually by putting a pawn in the middle. Black wants to do the same thing because they're trying to do the same objectives. The next step is to develop your minor pieces, which is your knights and your bishops. These are your opening pieces. You want to develop them as quickly as possible so you can get your king to safety. Knights have this amazing ability to jump over pawns, so they go 1, 2, turn. They're usually the first thing you want to get into the game. Now this knight is actually attacking this pawn. So black will do something similar. They'll defend it, like so. They defended the pawn. Because now, if you take this, you get 1 point, but they can take you back. They get 3 points. So we've just lost 2 points of material. We have a smaller army now, it's going to be harder to win. So let's go back. We want to carry on with our plan. We want to get our knights and bishops out. So the next move we can play, for example, is 1, 2, turn, get our knight into the game. Let's say black follows the same, does the same thing. Next up, bishop. The way I like to think about this in chess, similar to Chinese chess, Shangqi, is there is a river in the middle of the board. Your goal is to have more of your army attacking past this river. Because if you just move your bishop like here, for example, you're not really attacking your opponent. You're being defensive, and they're just going to come and attack you. So you want to go as far as you can without getting taken. So both of these squares are good. Here is good, or here is good. Because you're attacking into your opponent's side of the board. If that makes sense. So let's say they play here. Black also wants to develop their pieces. So let's say they decide to go here and attack my knight. Now we can finally teach you what castling is. Castling is another ability in chess. It's a king ability. It's the most overpowered ability in chess because it's the only time you can move 2 pieces at once. And it's the only time your king is allowed to break its rule. Usually it can only move 1 square. It can move 2 squares. The way castling works is your king goes 1, 2, and the rook jumps over. And that's the 3rd rule of the opening. So the first rule was control the center, usually by at least putting a pawn there, and then developing your knights and bishops to help. Lastly, getting your king to safety. I know we haven't developed this bishop yet, but king safety is so important that you want to do it as quick as possible. So we got these pieces out first so we can castle. The reason why castling is important is because now this king is guarded by all of these bodyguards, and your rook is able to get into the game. It's going to be very hard for your opponent to beat you. If your king's stuck in the middle, this is how you lose very quickly at chess. So first step, control the center, get your knights and bishops out, and castle. But let's finish off both sides so you can see how the opening fully finishes. Black decides they want to go queen side, so they want to develop these pieces first and go the other way to me. First step is develop their bishop. Currently the pawns are in the way. The bishop's not allowed to jump over a pawn, so we're going to have to develop a piece. This is a nice move because it also strengthens your center. Remember, the center is where all the action happens. We also want to get our bishop out. Let's say we want to do something a little bit differently. We want to bring them out this way instead, so we decide to move this pawn. They develop their bishop. They don't go passive, instead they go aggressive. And they play their bishop here, attacking our knight. Now this knight, if it ever moves, we're going to lose our queen. This is what we call a pin. So they've pinned our knight, and it makes it kind of annoying to move. We develop our bishop, we carry on with our plan. Our opponent develops their queen because they want to move their king. So let's say they move their queen here. We do the same, we develop our queen. We have connected our rooks. This is another thing you want to do. These guys are like best buds. They want to protect each other. So now their king can castle. They decide to go this way. So the difference is you still go 2 with your king and the rook jumps over. You'll notice that if you go the other way, the king lands on a slightly different square, purely just because there's an extra square here for where the queen was. So remember, 1, 2, and the rook jumps over if you want to go queenside. We've just started the game though, so this is the opening phase of the game, complete. Now we're on to the middle game. The middle game is all about the bloodbath in the middle, pieces attacking each other, trying to win points of material, because the bigger your army, the more likely you're going to be able to checkmate in the end game, which is the last phase of the game, when most of your knights and bishops are off the board, and you're left with queens, rooks, and pawns, or sometimes even just kings and pawns, like so. Okay, so now you know how the pieces move, a few mini games, you know what en passant is, you know what castling is, you know how to start the game, you kind of have a rough idea that you're just supposed to capture pieces and get the bigger army, but now we need to figure out how to finish off the game with check and checkmate. And then we can finally play our first game of chess. There's quite the learning curve here. It takes a lot of practice until you stop making illegal moves. But once you get past that, it's really fun and you can constantly learn new things. You can play chess for 30 years, you're still going to learn stuff. That's how deep this game is. That's why it's stuck around for centuries, because there's so many levels and layers to this game, and you can constantly keep improving yourself, which is awesome, and get better every day. Okay, let's go through what a check is. A check is when you attack your opponent's king. Right now, the rook is aiming at the king, putting it in danger. Black has to respond to this, and there's 3 ways to get out of check. We like to call it CPR, capture, protect, run away. So first off, you look at capture. Can the king capture the rook? No, that would be illegal because that's 1, 2, 3, 4 squares away. It can only be 1 at a time. P stands for protect or block. So for example, if you had a rook magically on this square, you could protect your king by moving your rook in front, so putting a piece in between to block the check. The king is no longer attacked because the rook can only see the first piece it touches. If the rook captures your rook, for example, check, now you can use capture to get out of check. So this rook is not defended. King can capture by moving 1 square, it can take the rook. If this rook was defended, you would no longer be allowed to capture it because you would put your king in danger, and the next turn they can take you. You're not allowed to lose your king, so you've done an illegal move. So let's go back. The R stands for run away. If you cannot capture, you cannot protect the block because there's no square in between or you've got no pieces left, you gotta run away with your king. Usually this is the last resort, so you can run away like so and get out of danger. You're no longer attacked. So that's check and how to get out of check using capture, protect, run away. However, the goal of the game is checkmate. Checkmate is when you check the king, attack the king, and it can't get out of it. So here, the rook is checking the king cannot capture, it's too far away. We don't have a rook or anything to protect or block these squares, and we're not allowed to run away because if we go anywhere here, this rook is going to capture us. We've made an illegal move. But this is actually where the game finishes. So this is the way to win at chess, by checkmate. We're almost there. There's one little cheeky rule here to draw the game though. Let's say white doesn't really know how to checkmate in this position, and they play this move. This is what we call a stalemate. You've probably heard this in movies before. So the king is not in check. This is the big difference. But it's black's turn, and there's no legal moves. It can't move here because the rook takes. It can't move here because the rook takes. This is a stalemate. This is how we can swindle a game and we can draw even when we're completely losing. So always hang in there. If you're losing the game, you lost all your pieces, don't worry, there's still a chance you can stalemate. However, in this position, let's say you have a pawn, the black pawn's going this way. Technically, one of your pieces can still move. So this pawn can move. So this is not a stalemate, giving white time to figure out how to checkmate in this position. Good luck with your first game of chess. I'm going to put timestamps in the description so you can come back at any point if there's any rules you've forgotten about or one part that you're struggling with. If you found this video helpful, please share it and let's bring the joy of chess to more people around the world. If you want to keep improving, check out my other videos, hit like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.